In a glass-walled boardroom 47 floors above the city, a black CEO extended her hand across the table. The chairwoman stared at it, smirked, lifted her palm like she was blocking a sneeze and said, "We don't shake hands with people like you." Silence. Not polite silence. The kind that crackles. Someone let out a nervous half-laugh and immediately coughed to cover it. An executive pretended to check notes. Another stared fixedly at the wall. The investor livestream cameras caught everything. The smirk. The line. The dropped hand. What nobody in that room understood was simple. The woman she'd just humiliated controlled every dollar on the table. By morning, $2.4 billion would be gone. Not in a screaming match. Not in a leaked email scandal. Just or gone. Before we get into how one sentence detonated an empire, tell me in the comments, have you ever stayed calm in the moment just so you could win properly later? All right, let's step into that boardroom. The 47th floor boardroom of Langston Tower was built to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling glass, the city laid out like a map below. A table so glossy it reflected every frown. Chairs that cost more than some people's cars. 12 executives sat around it in tailored suits and expensive watches. The air smelled like coffee, stress, and ego. At the head sat Victoria Sloan, chairwoman. Born into old money, married into new money, built into myth. She didn't just run Sloan Industries. In her mind, she was Sloan Industries. She'd built her firm from 2 second-hand desks in a noisy co-working space into one of the most respected investment houses in the sector. Today's meeting, the final negotiation of a $2.4 billion merger. On paper, Sloan Industries plus Monroe Capital harmonize unstoppable. In Victoria's mind, not a merger, a coronation, and she'd already assigned Ava her role, the impressive outsider, talented, grateful, manageable, the one who should be thankful to sit at the table at all. Because the insult wasn't the most important moment of the day. It was just the receipt. Let's rewind 6 months. Different room. Different table. No skyline. Just a bland conference room and a fat stack of paper. The first draft of the merger. Ava sat with her lawyer, Naomi Chen. Calm, precise, criminally overcaffeinated. Naomi flipped through the contract. Clause 8.3, she said. Termination rights. Here's how it reads. If any party determines in its sole discretion that ongoing association presents a reputational concern, they may withdraw from the agreement with 90 days' notice. Counterparty capital remains committed during this period and is subject to standard withdrawal penalties. Naomi looked up. As written, they can say, your bad optics, walk away, and your capital stays locked and penalized. They're protected. You're trapped. So they can disrespect us and still keep the money, Ava said. Naomi shrugged. Pretty much. Ava sat back in her chair, stared at the ceiling for a moment. Then she leaned forward. Rewrite it. Naomi's eyebrow went up. How aggressive. Assume they'll test every boundary, Ava said. Protect us accordingly. They're going to hate this, she said. Their lawyers will push back. They need our capital more than we need their name, Ava replied. They'll sign. Sloan's legal team huffed, fussed about loaded language, made tiny edits around commas, and signed. They didn't understand who they were dealing with. They saw a black woman with a self-made firm and assumed she should be grateful. They assumed she'd never walk away. They assumed wrong. Back to the 47th floor, back to the cameras, back to the moment Ava said understood, and the meeting moved on like nothing had happened. They talked about timelines, press releases, road shows. Victoria couldn't resist one more jab. Miss Monroe, she said, you'll learn this industry doesn't reward emotional ambition. It rewards knowing your place. 5 minutes earlier, the investor livestream had gone live. New York, London, Dubai fund managers, shareholders, analysts all watching. Chat windows open. Screens recording for transparency. Victoria loved that word, transparency. As long as she was the one editing the view. You've built an impressive firm, Miss Monroe, Victoria said now, her voice just a shade too loud, aimed at the mic. For your background. There it was. Not for your size. Not for your age. For your background. A couple of the men around the table smirked. One shifted in his seat. No one said anything. Ava smiled. Thank you, Madam Chair, she said evenly. We're proud of our performance. Shall we begin? Synergies, integration structures, market expansion. Ava's team presented clean decks, precise analysis, return profiles that made even the most jaded investors sit up straighter. But every time Ava spoke, Victoria cut across her. Let me clarify what Miss Monroe is trying to say. That's a bold assumption from your side of town. A tiny pause. Your side of the market. The executives around the table pretended not to hear the slip. The investors on the stream did. Private chats lit up. Did she really say side of town? But nobody challenged Victoria. She'd been queen for too long. Finally, the presentations ended. The numbers worked. The models worked. The story worked. The cameras kept rolling. Victoria stood, gathering her papers with a practiced smile. Well, she said, I think we're aligned. Pending signatures, Monroe Capital will become our primary capital partner. No visible anger. Then she lowered it. Smooth, controlled. Understood, she said quietly. Victoria's eyes gleamed like she'd just put someone in their place. Now that we're clear on protocol, she said, let's proceed to finalize the terms. Around the table, shoulders relaxed. Pens moved again. Laptops were open. They thought the moment had passed. They thought the story was over. They were wrong. Monroe Capital has submitted formal notice of immediate withdrawal of all capital. The entire $2.4 billion effective immediately. The notice cites clause 8.3. The room exploded. They can't do that. That clause was about reputational. Check the wording again. Get legal on the line. Victoria turned to Ava, shock flaring into anger. You can't just walk away, she said. We have an agreement. Ava met her eyes. Yes, she said calmly. We do. She folded her hands on the table. Specifically, an agreement that says, if discrimination is documented during negotiation, the injured party can walk away and take their money with them, she said. She nodded toward the corner, to the still rolling camera. We don't shake hands with people like you, she repeated, on a live stream, to your largest capital partner. The clip played on repeat, the smirk, the line, the hand left hanging. Hashtags brewed. Group chats buzzed. Investors called in fury, not at Ava for once, but at Sloan. Investor relations pinged the boardroom. Handshake clips circulating. Phrase people like you trending. Major shareholders requesting emergency clarification call. Victoria turned on her team. Fix this, she demanded. Now. One older board member, gray hair and tired eyes, stared at the table. Madam Chair, he said quietly, we all saw it. There's only so much spin in the world. Victoria glared at Ava. You're destroying everything I built, she hissed. Ava stood, gathering her things. No, she said, I'm just refusing to fund it. This industry will blacklist you for this, Victoria shot back. You think you can humiliate Sloan and still do business? Ava's smile was small, almost kind. You think I humiliated you? She asked. You did that yourself. I just made it expensive. Consider it a live demonstration, she added, of why you should always read clause 8.3. At the door, Ava paused. She leaned just slightly toward Victoria so only she could hear. You think power means control, she murmured. It doesn't. Power means choice. She straightened. And I just exercised mine. Then she stepped out, leaving a room full of men who were suddenly wondering how much of their net worth had just walked away. By evening, the whole thing had a name. The handshake collapse. Sloan's stock had lost over a third of its value. Creditors started asking hard questions. Partners whispered about reputational risk. Victoria tried to fight back. A written apology. Then a video. She claimed people like you meant people who undermine our standards. She said it was taken out of context. The internet responded by posting the full, uncut live stream. There was no context that made it better. Sponsors quietly backed out of conferences. Boards reconsidered her speaking slots. Charities distanced themselves. Monroe Capital quietly redeployed $2.4 billion into 3 other companies. Different leadership. Different culture. People who shook her hand without hesitation. She also made one more call. To the junior executive in the too big blazer. Hi, this is Ava Monroe, she said. Silence. Then a tiny, stunned voice. Hi, I saw your face in that boardroom, Ava said. You didn't laugh. You didn't look away. You looked. Awake. She paused. You don't owe me an answer, she added. But if you ever want to work somewhere that doesn't ask you to pretend you didn't see what you saw, my HR director's email is on our website. A year later, that same woman stood at the front of Monroe Capital's main conference room, presenting a new fund. When she finished, Ava crossed the room, took her hand in front of everyone, and shook it firmly. No hesitation. No performance. Just respect. Business schools turned the handshake collapse into a case study. In boardrooms around the world, Black executives, women, first-gen leaders, anyone who'd ever been talked down to for their background, forwarded the clip to each other with messages like, "This is what happens when we control capital." Because sometimes power doesn't look like shouting. Sometimes power is a calm understood, a clause everyone else forgot about, and the decision to stop extending your hand to people who never deserved it. If this story hits something inside you, remember, you don't always have to win in the room. Sometimes you smile, say understood, and let the paperwork do the talking.